Metaquise.
Metaquai. I imagine that's just an enormous quai with like missiles for arms. Fire blasting out her mouth. Metaquai.
Or it'd be like in her news posts referencing other news posts that she's made that just go on forever. Yeah.
But everything that shoots out of her huge kawaii weapons and all the horrid, aggressive, deadly force is going to be super cute and pink.
Yeah, it's true.
Rainbows and sparkles.
The hellfire will be strangely charming as it rains down.
Yeah.
It'll be Nyan cats. Hello, welcome to the Quackcast. This is Quackcast number 364. We've finally reached, what is 300? Is that how many degrees in a circle?
No, it's 360.
Oh, damn, we've already been there. We're past it. We're going full
4
circle.
degrees over.
Already gone full circle.
Jeez, I'm a moron. So, we're going to be talking about just doing it, starting a webcomic this week. So, all these people who are sort of, hesitant or, you want to start a webcomic, you're not sure, you've been reading them for ages and you think, oh, I could do that, but I don't know. I'm scared, I'm nervous, I'm new. Don't worry. Mm-hmm. We're going to, convince you. Shia LaBeouf style.
Yeah. We're going to force you to start the webcomic. We're going to make you do it.
Just do it! Do it!
We're going to push some baby birds out of a nest.
Yeah.
Whether you can fly or not.
Yeah. Down to the hungry
and then
cats
we will
waiting
possess
below.
the nest and sit in it like a baby cuckoo eggs.
Yeah, we're going to take over your spot. So before we do that, we got to get into the what is it? The featured comic. So Quai has given us the featured comic, and the featured comic this week was Quai Dahlia. So it's the featured. It's her namesake. Take it away, Quai. This is Quaiception with Quai Dahlia.
Hello, this is Kawaii Daigakusei, and the feature I've selected for this week is Kawaii Dahlia by Skeptical Square, and it is rated E for everyone. Let plant lovers and lovers of architectural dwellings rejoice. Here is a comic that will teach you a ton about trees and leaves, and will put a kawaii, cute face on it. In addition to this comic being visually calming, there are important messages in it, like why we should help save the sea turtles in the ocean. This comic will teach some new facts about different types of plants and architectural structures. The art is drawn digitally, but it looks like it is painted on the side of a cement building. Learn something new and read Kawaii Dahlia by Skeptical Square, rated E.
And that was our feature, Kawaii Dahlia. Thank you for that, Kawaii. All right, after that we have the music by Gumwallis, and this week Gumwallis has given us the music to Flesh and Wires, which was a comic that Kawaii featured just 2 weeks ago. So, yeah, this is amazing. He's just taking them up really quickly. So the music is dirty and distorted electric guitar and determined fuzzy bass, weaving together over a haunting synthesized melodica. Portentous and evocative, this music tells a story in its own runtime. The main riff reminds me a little bit of my fave part of We Don't Need Another Hero by Tina Turner, actually. So you'll see that when it plays. Okay, so take it away, Gun Wallace. Oh, yeah. And that was our music by Gun Wallace. It was Flesh and Wires. Thank you very much for that, Gun Wallace. Okay, so I forgot to introduce these marvelous people. We have Emma again. Emma.
Hi.
Hello.
Thank you.
Hello, Emma.
Hello.
Returning. Of course, we have Tanzarine. Hello, Tans.
Hello.
We have Pit to Face. Hello, Pit Face.
Pit to faced.
Pit to Face.
I have fallen from grace. I've been pit to face.
Pit to Face. And Baines. I can't add any extra syllables in that one, unfortunately. Bananas.
That's okay. Hello.
Bainesy. All right. That's all of us. Okay, so anyway, to just do it. So Pitt, you've done a news post that's sort of very much along those lines, isn't it? It's about the this horror film you saw, which was so striking to you. It's
Well, I wouldn't go that far. It was a good time.
it was life changing. The best horror film you've
Now
ever seen.
existentially different
Yeah.
right now.
I've seen the Dunwich horror. Terror. So basically, I watched a movie yesterday. It was an old 70s horror flick called Tourist Trap. And it's kind of your run of the mill this van full of teenager-esque people. Yeah. They you're like, I know that one. I know that one.
Yeah, it's like every horror movie ever in the 90s.
Yeah. And so they go, and of course they break down, and they're in this backwoods, middle of nowhere, and there's this creepy psycho, and he starts chasing them and stuff like that. It's very Texas Chainsaw Massacre. You can see a lot of influence in there from that. And so I was prepared to be like, all right, well, this is going to be kind of just like a rip-off, but I found myself really entertained by it nonetheless, because although it hadn't come up with a purely original idea, the way they executed it was still nonetheless just really fun. And that's all I was really looking for. I was looking for a good time. And it delivered. It had its own kind of quirkiness to it. And so I was thinking of it later on. I went out to have a couple drinks. I braved the cold, harsh London winter and went out and I found myself, I was thinking about the movie some more. Just certain scenes that I liked, some kooky lines that they delivered. One of the fun things about it is that I found out after the fact is Chuck Connors actually was playing the psycho in the mask. So if you want to see him in this weird dressed in drag kind of mannequin mask, that it's really worth it. He plays the role really well, I think. I really liked him in it. But
I just have to say at this point, I got really into horror web series since the last time I was on. So that's probably within the last 2 weeks. And so many of these web series have masked
protagonists or
yeah, I was trying to think of the
Antagonists.
other word for that, which is antagonist. Because sometimes they are the protagonists and sometimes they're antagonists. Web series is a really weird gray line. And they nearly, a lot of them have masks. So when I saw that pop up, I was completely freaked out. Because I was like, oh my god, another mask.
They're coming out of the web series.
I've spent a week looking around corners because I've been completely freaked out.
They're haunting all the sites.
And he'll definitely be waiting for you when you wake up in the middle of the night tomorrow.
Oh, don't say that.
I'd like to see some of these series, actually. I'm starting to really get into some. There's these weird Polish videos that I've been watching. Not to get too far off the subject, but they're just so bizarre, and I don't speak Polish, and I've watched some other analysis of them.
What's the name of it? Because I think I might know the one you're talking about. I have devoured
There's
every web
two
series.
of them, yeah. One's Smile Guide, and then the other one is The Magical World of Anna, I think.
Yes, The Magical World of Anna. I was watching that at work, and I was freaking out people who kept walking past my desk.
Oh my god, dude. We need to trade some series. We need to hook up on this shit, dude. Because they're so bizarre.
Sorry, we can't look away. That's anyway.
Too far.
Web series are a good example of just do it.
Don't police us. You know how many times that you guys go off the rails and then we have to try and hit you back online? Well, I do it all the time. I do it, but you know what? We were on our way to coming back and making a point with this. It's that a lot of those web series are small scale operations that don't necessarily break the mold.
No, a lot of them can get really popular.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think Marble Hornets, which was part of the Slenderman verse, that got made into a terrible movie. So you never know where this can go.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can see a lot of people trying to replicate the creepy pasta. What's the word I'm looking for?
Genre
success.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, there's actually the actual genre for this sort of thing. So the one about Anna that you're talking about, like Marble Hornets, a lot of the web series based in the Slenderverse, they are actually referred to as ARGs, which stands for Alternate Reality Games.
Yes.
Because a lot of them involve other aspects as well. So it's not just on YouTube, but a lot of them have associated Twitter accounts, and a lot of them have associated Tumblrs. And the whole idea is to try and piece together all those bits, or wait for someone who has more time and energy to explain it to you.
Yeah, that's actually how I started getting turned on to those, is that I watch a lot of analysis videos, and yay! And
we will swap notes.
Yes, we will. I think it was Nightmare Expo. He did something. Yeah, he did something on, I think, both Smile Guide and the Magical World of Anna. And then they just have these feelings to them, like the way that they use the music and the way that they shoot the scenes. It's really bizarre, but also just it's like throwback, while it's got this these videos have these flavors of their own that they create that they don't even I don't even really know. The stories are real loose, because it's what you said, you have to kind of piece them together. You don't even know if there's really anything to piece together or what, especially since we don't speak Polish. Well, I don't anyway. So I'm more just oh, look at the images. Oh, the music with it, creepy. But yeah, I mean,
it's
you got
actually made creepier by the fact that it's made creepier by the fact that you can't understand it. And I think Nightmare Expo actually said that part of the draw for that Anna series was the fact that he couldn't understand it, but it was really compelling nonetheless.
Yeah. So there are these little operations. I assume they're little operations, because I don't think you need a huge budget to do this kind of stuff. That
no budget.
yeah. And somebody just had the idea, all right, I want to go and I want to make this bizarre ass thing, and they did it. They sat down and they invested, because that nonetheless takes a lot of time and energy to create, and a degree of knowledge and skill, and nonetheless they sat down and they did it.
Because I think there was this one series that came out, because there's this really good channel that talks about it, and I will bring this full circle back to the topic. But there's this one series that this one channel called Nightmind, and he does excellent analyses of these ARGs, and he has this whole series called I can't remember what it is, but it's he goes through all these new and upcoming web series. And there's one called Hi, my name is Mary, I think it is. And it's a little bit creepy and a little bit cheesy, but you can see that there's a high level of production value behind it, because some of the effects that they pick, like the post-production that they use, it's like that would actually take quite a lot of technical skill to do. So there's some very smart film students behind this. But Nightmind also goes into this excellent series about building a web series or creating a web series. And he has one episode dedicated to coming up with ideas. And essentially, by the end of it, he's like, look, this might not be the idea. This might not be the fish that you're looking to catch. But the point is, you now have an idea that you can throw back into the idea sea and find a new one. Find that bigger fish and just keep building and keep catching new ideas.
Yeah.
But the point is, you just kind of have to do it. You have to be open and you just got to do it.
Yeah.
And then whatever you learn in that project, you take over to the next one.
Very much
Right.
so. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. We did come back.
Yeah.
Thanks.
No, well, I thought we were pretty on track though that whole time though, because we were talking about, these
Yes.
operations. People, they sit down and they did it. They're bizarre, weird ideas, and they're not necessarily super polished or professional, but they did it.
Yeah.
And in fact,
So you don't have an excuse anymore. Do your shit.
And just like webcomics and web series, the key draw to them is that they are rough and that they are unpolished, because they're going to try and take it in different in different ways. So that's, and like, I think we covered this last time I was on anyway, like the guy that did One Punch Man and that, his work when he started was not polished at all. But that was part of its charm.
Yeah.
And he could do a story that was about a guy who was so powerful that he punches stuff and then spends most of the day looking, like, just wandering around doing shopping.
Yeah, and as I was saying before we started, there were some people who spend years putting together every last little thing for and they research comics. And they think, oh god, got to do this style. This style's popular. Oh, I like the three panel gag comic. Oh, I don't know. Oh, maybe I'll turn it into a full color graphic novel. Maybe I'll host it on Webtoons. What's the best one? Geez, how are people going to receive this? All these, should I include this kind of popular character or this kind of popular thing? And how often should I update it? What pen should I use?
There is this, especially in literature and in real life, I suppose, at least once upon a time, not too far ago, of the author that was leeching off a rich wife or girlfriend and always was writing this magnus opus and never got actually to write anything because they were not doing anything, or they were overthinking things, or generally they weren't actually intending in creating anything. It was just the hype of being an author in the process of creating something or writing something that is supposedly very good, but nobody ever gets to see it and it never gets completed. So, the idea I'm saying is that if you overthink things, or if you just get too comfortable in the process of thinking how and planning and projecting in the future how you're gonna do things, you will probably get stuck in that phase, never do anything, and just try to milk off that stage instead of going ahead and producing. Although that might sound very harsh and cynical, it does happen very often.
It does.
So it is going to get you to that ideal awesome phase of having created something that gets better and better with time if you actually get out and start doing it and get feedback on actual stuff that you have done that you use to create something better and better and better until you reach a stage that maybe it's not even something you have ever considered right now, but you have done that
And by opening yourself up to putting it online as well, you have the benefit of connecting with people and getting comments and seeking feedback in a way that you can improve. And a lot of the time, like, you wouldn't be getting that improvement without getting the feedback, and you wouldn't be getting the feedback without just doing it. And there are going to be some people who don't like it, and if you want to do it, you kind of have to get used to that. But then you're going to get people who are going to love it and who are going to stick with you all the way through every crazy thing you're going to do. And they are the people, apart from you writing for you, they are the people you're writing for. You're a creator. You get to experiment with whatever you want. And that's a huge draw. It's like, dude, you can just go nuts. Like, you can pull every twist and just see what people do. Like, this is your time to experiment. You don't have to be good. You're allowed to experiment, and you're allowed to let projects fail.
Exactly.
Because that's how you learn.
That's part of the beauty of being on these sort of sites. I mean, not that I have the perspective to talk about, like, working for DC or Marvel or anything like that, but I think I'd much rather work on something like this project-wise. Now, I mean, when it comes to actually getting paid and actually getting some outside recognition, of course, that the story kind of turns. But I love working on sites like The Duck because, like you were saying, there is so much room for experimentation. You can fail. You can just, it's liberating, really.
Yeah. And really, the thing is, when you produce a project, it doesn't have to come out of the gate being perfectly polished, because it's a webcomic. If you were doing a print comic, then it's sort of fixed, set in stone. You've got a document there. But webcomics are allowed to improve as they go. Your little project can just, like, grow as it's being produced. It doesn't have to come out being crystalline,
fully formed or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Yes,
And even
whatever name Aphrodite was born.
Even in print comics, that isn't like. I last time I did mention Erzest and 10, and how, of course, it started off a certain level and went up, but it did start off a level that wouldn't have been acceptable for Erzest himself in his later stages. It was crude compared to other work. So, and it was print because it was published in newspapers, in dailies and everything like that. So it was basically a print comic. He never went back to correct it. He never bothered, and it just stayed crude as it was, and super racist as well. So, so you can even be a racist bastard, and it's still a start-off, and nobody's gonna do anything except perhaps cause a buzz and be offended. But that also is an experience.
That's a good point. There are lots of print comics, and you look at the earliest versions of them, and they're pretty rough. Even classics like Batman and Superman, if you got the first versions of those, that's not all fancy and colourful and perfectly done. So, yeah.
Especially as the characters, I'm thinking about Kenshin, that by now everybody knows I used to be a fangirl of. But if you take the first couple of books, the manga, and you compare it to the streamlined, finalized later stages and versions of how the same artist basically created Kenshin himself as a character, it's like it looks, the first book looks like it was created by some of his fans compared to the final versions in the final books. There is really no comparison. But it got published, it still sells, nobody complains, and nobody tells him, oh my God, look at what you created when you were, 10 years ago when you started, and it was horrid, and shame on you, and stuff like that. Nobody says that. It's a process, and at least I think a good part of the readership will like to even witness that process and that fine tuning. that you go through as you create your characters.
Yeah, because then they can sort of claim, they saw the growing of your work, and they saw it grow and change and develop, and yeah.
And I think this the barrier that a lot of people starting out in webcomics feel is that, my style isn't polished enough yet, or I'm not at a stage where it'd be good enough. Well, I can tell you the best way to be good enough is to kind of just start and do it, feel the obligation to do it every day, because then you will get better. And it will get to a stage where maybe the next project is kind of where you want to be art-wise. But and your style is always going to evolve because you are constantly building and constantly learning, and that's okay, as you said. Like,
absolutely,
yeah.
If you're not doing those things, if you're not evolving, then there's something. I don't know. Everybody seems to evolve as they go along, because see, you can front load as much information as you can. You can study all of the drawing and anatomy books, and that'll help. You can get all of the art advice, on how to lay things out and really collect all this knowledge, and that's great. But unless you apply that knowledge, unless you use it practically and actually practice with it, you're not going to really learn it in and out, because as much as you can learn, the so-called rules and stuff like that, those are always something that you learn to play with as you go along. Guy Gilchrist, who I learned a lot about comics from, one of the things that he used to say all the time, and I think he got this quote from someone else as well, I just can't remember who it was, and he'd give me a dirty look, but he would say, you have to know the rules before you can break them.
Yeah.
But the thing is that you can break them. You can play with them, but in order to get that knowledge of what you want to do with those so-called rules, you need to learn how you yourself can,
You have to learn the ropes to begin with before you can,
Basically, you learn the rules. By learning the rules, you learn how to break them. It's like,
that's exactly what Yeah,
you know where you can overextend or where you have more leeway in what can't be done or can't be done yet.
Or you learn the reason for breaking the rules. I mean, that's the most important thing. Like, so when I was an art student back years and years ago, there was, there's a whole history to art, as we know, from, like in the history of Western art, we go from figurative to, the more modern art. So figurative, slightly abstract, and then to conceptual art. And that's the process it took. But a lot of people just jump straight into doing abstract or straight into doing conceptual art without knowing, like, the process. So they're sort of imitating, Pollock or something like that, or they imitate whatever style of something that was avant-garde, maybe like in the 1920s, thinking, oh Jesus, I'm being like clever and avant-garde and conceptual, but they're just aping someone else's process of, they broke the rules for a reason, and these people don't even know what they're doing. It's like a child copying a parent in their mannerisms and stuff like that without even knowing why their parent has those mannerisms, or like a monkey copying a human doing, something or other without understanding the process. What I'm saying is, in order to understand why you even would do that kind of thing, you have to sort of get a basis in where they began. And then you wouldn't necessarily break the rules in the same way. So you're not necessarily going to, do the old urinal and sign your name. You're going to do something totally different, totally unique. But in order to do that, you can't skip the levels. You're doing that is just produces something that's not genuine. It's artificial constructed.
I think in relation to webcomics, when it comes to that, you are going to go through a bit of a phase where you're learning, and you are going to ape different styles, and you're
all gonna be ape man. You know that.
Yeah, you're going to draw some very weird stuff. You're going to go through that stage where you see what has worked for other people, and so that's what you're going to do. And like, you see that through every artist's progression as an artist. They go through a stage, or they go through a phase where they are going to copy the things that they love. And that's okay. Like, you're allowed to do that for a little bit, so long as you recognize that that's what you're doing. But as you go along and you start to develop your own skills and you start to get that foundation, that's when you start to create something very unique, something that appeals or speaks to you. So you're like, oh, okay, well, this genre, for example, you might be doing something in romance. So you follow essentially your shoujo Bible, where you go through your Sailor Moons, you go through all the, gosh, I can't believe that this
Clamp.
is actually, you're going through all your clamps. See, I used to be huge into shoujo, and when I started, that is all the stuff that I copied, and that is all where my stories started. And I was also 16, so there was a lot of things going on there, a lot of angst that needed to be got out. And so that's where I started. And you can tell if you look back at all my work, you can see the panels are almost like shot for shot for some of the panels in the comics that I read. But that was okay, because that's where I kind of got that foundation. And then once you're in that genre, or once you're in that style, you start to learn why they do that. And you just have to be prepared to go through that phase. And you can't, from a philosophical point of view, you are the experiences, you are the collection of experiences up until now. So you're going to inevitably copy something that you've done before or seen before. That's okay.
But I also would like, sorry.
Oh, no, please, you go.
No, I was saying, I was going to add to what you said, that loving something very much and being very, very much influenced and inspired from it is something that is going to accompany you throughout your, I wouldn't say, like, I don't want to call it a career, because that brings other kinds of pressures, but your journey through art, you are going to be accompanied by this. And even the masters of the masters had influenced each other in certain ways, and you can see the influences, and you can see how they took this influence and made it their own, letting it react and meld into their own thing, whatever that was. So that's definitely not going to be a problem unless you box yourself in and you just do one thing only in a very specific manner. That is going to stagnate you. I'm thinking, for example, I used, and I still like it very much. I cannot emulate it, not by a long shot, but I have always been very much in love with Hergé's Ligne Claire approach, that this almost blueprint level detail and crispness. Yeah, I absolutely loved it. And I think that if you know that and you see how I do my line work, there is an influence there and you can see it. Maybe it's never going to be, and it's never, I don't want it to be a Ligne Claire thing, because I have shadows. I like to have different thickness in the line work and everything. But I do think that the approach that I use in inking and in creating line work has this touch, let's say, of this infatuation that I used to have with how Hergé would do
It's
his
part
work, but it's not. Yeah, but it's not a copy because
it's part
it
of the
has
DNA of your comic, really.
Yes, it has nothing to do with Azer's work, clearly, but it also has nothing to do with how you would go about creating Ligne Claire, which is basically almost vector art, in my opinion. So, what I'm saying is that there are going to be elements in your style as it evolves that will reflect the things that you love and the things that really appeal to you and still have affected you as an artist. And that is also very much okay, because that will create your own personal style and your own mark in art.
Yeah.
But in order to do all these things, you have to start. And you have to allow yourself to begin with what you have, with the tools you have, the influences you have, and all things in between. And you shouldn't care all that much if 10 years down the road you will want to burn that thing that you started with or not. Personally, and now I regret it, but I have gone through phases, especially as an author, not so much as a webcomic creator, that I have burned at least 2 fireplace fulls of work. And now I regret it because I know it was terrible and nobody would be able to read it, but I would like to still have it as a reference of where I started off from.
Yeah.
And it was a mistake. Ben.
And you destroyed
I'm
those
imagining
expensive
you
computers. You should have just deleted the files.
Yeah.
I'm imagining you in like a dark room where like the fire of the pyre is the only thing lighting it, giving you up lighting. It's your stone cold face as your papers burn and crumble and cry from her fire deaf ears.
It wasn't that far off the truth, because usually when I burned my stuff, I was exceedingly angry at my output as an artist.
You're so hard on yourself. Oh,
yeah, and I actually threw the stuff on the fire and hated every single part of its process being burned. And so
many literary effigies you've had to burn.
Yeah.
What about, say, we talk about art a lot, but a lot of people are very nervous with their writing style, not thinking that's good enough, and so they might go, "Oh God, plotting and endings."
Writing is art. Writing is art.
It is, okay. But I mean, it's not it's not 2D art, so we're you're not sort of so much embarrassed about your the way you've depicted something or other. So you get nervous in a different way over writing, don't you?
Oh, you burn your stuff like I did. But what I would like to say as an author, and I actually am much more confident as an author because that's my professional art genre, art category, whatever you want to call it. But if you are worried about your art as a writer, that's the excellent mark of someone who is going to create, if not already is creating, something worth a while. Because I have seen a lot of people that are shit writers. I cannot call them anything else. Like literally, it's not readable. You can't read that thing. It's like a word soup.
Why are you pointing at me?
I'm trying to
just keep it vague.
I thought you wouldn't notice, Bane.
Okay.
So anyway, I remember back in the day, I used to be in a forum for artists only. Now it's closed. It doesn't exist anymore. I wonder why. Anyway, and those people that couldn't write 2 lines to save their lives were the ones that were the shoutiest, loudest, and most self-presumptuous little twats out there. Like they were the Victor Hugo of humanity, and they were the Albert Camus of I don't know whatever genre they thought they were writing in, and
I don't know
like
what
they. So and you could see, and that was amazing how consistent that was. That people that were very very self-centered in a way, that they were self-promoting to a point, like with arrogance.
Oh
I would
yeah,
say
that happens
Mm.
all the time.
Yeah.
It's
they
the
were the ones that had nothing to show for.
They
So if
call
you
that-
are self-conscious, if you are worried about
Yeah.
your art, if you are worried about the output of your work, then I would say that is a good indication that at least if it's not there yet, it's getting there. So don't worry all
Yeah.
that much.
It's called
Yeah.
the Dunning-Kruger
That's a good point.
effect. It's the people who don't know enough or don't know enough about something don't know enough to know that they don't know enough.
Yes.
Basically.
Yeah.
So they're
Very
super
well.
confident because they don't know any better. You
Well,
know,
they're overcompensating.
yeah.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think
the defense or something like that.
yeah.
Yeah.
When creating the story for the Constellation Chronicle, we were very, I mean, obviously it's sci-fi fantasy. It's a very well explored genre, to put it lightly. And when we were designing it, putting the story together, we knew that we weren't doing something necessarily original, but that was okay, because as we were doing it and I was doing reading and theory about it, about creating a story itself, one of the things which I read, which was very helpful, was that there is no original story. In fact, people look for similar patterns in stories. So they're actually looking for something, and they innately know what a good story is. But all good stories tend to follow the same or a similar pattern or like a similar cycle of narrative storytelling. So if you're actually following this narrative, it's like the best one to describe it was from Dan Harmon, who does Community, who does Rick and Morty, and who's done a YouTube Red series called Good Game as well. He describes the narrative process as a circle. So if you embrace the fact that no story is original, and in fact people are looking for the same thing over and over again, which is a story that follows a circle, and look it up. It's the Dan Harmon narrative cycle, and you'll find something there. That's what I Googled, and that's what I found. If you follow those steps, you're actually going to have the bones of a good story.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter what genre you're in. It applies to nearly all, I would say all genres, even horror, which seems to be loosey-goosey about the details anyway. But you can, if you follow it, everyone will think it's a good story. You have a good framework, and that helps create your character arcs as well, because you've got your full narrative cycle, which starts from 1 and goes to 8. But then you can have little mini circles that do the same thing all the way through for different characters. Exactly. So you've got some really good foundation there. And once you've embraced that, you can really launch from there and create something which seems original, but kind of isn't, because people are looking for the same thing over and over again. And that's
It's
okay.
like an underlying structure. Yeah. It's not like you're just checking cliche boxes and like sort of copying. But it's like these sort of underlying mechanics of it. Kind of invisible, but you feel it.
I would say think of a story, any kind of story, as a cake. Like everyone expects layers, filling, and some kind of icing on top or some kind of decoration. The originality in the cake and the appeal in the cake is how well you're going to do the filling and how well you're going to do the icing, like the icing on the top. So the rest is the basic thing that makes it a cake, because if you don't follow these rules of what it is to have a cake, then you're not going to have a cake. You're going to have something else, but it's not going to be a cake. And especially if you market it as a cake to people, and it's not a cake, they're going to be angry. They will feel cheated, and they will feel that you don't know, that you are not a cook.
Yeah. So if you go in saying that this thing is a sponge and then they get a biscuit, they're going to be really annoyed.
Yes.
They're gonna think that you left it in the oven too long. And
wrapped it in foil. Didn't take it
Yeah.
off.
Yeah, exactly. So there's that, and also you have to keep in mind that no matter how good your story is, not everyone is going to like it for various reasons. That doesn't mean that your story is not good enough. It means that for whatever reason they don't like that kind of cake. Like, for example, I hate, or as much as I love coffee, I don't like mocha in cake.
Oh,
I
I
hate
love
it.
Yeah.
I don't know
That
why.
reaction. It's like, what? How dare you?
Yeah. Like, there may have been like one cake ever that I liked that was mocha. I cannot have coffee in my buttercream for some reason. I don't like it. Although I can have coffee in literally everything else. It doesn't mean that the person that served me the mocha cake doesn't make a good cake. I just don't like the particular flavor. So that doesn't mean, okay, the person that served me the mocha shouldn't take it personally.
Yes.
And
Good
also, of
analogy.
course, I shouldn't be a twat and tell him that you don't know how to cook cake, because I will be able to tell that it's a good constructed mocha cake. It's just
not for
that
you.
I don't like it. Yeah, and I will be able to recognize as much, and that should be where I leave things at.
That's a
So-
good point.
Absolutely. And sometimes also, the criticism may also come from that maybe you are constructing it in a somewhat of a poor way, that and that happens when, you have things that aren't like important things that aren't connecting up, or, that's a hard thing to define. But even if you get that sort of criticism, don't let that break you either. Like,
It's
Take it on
hard.
board and
All right. You can do.
Yeah.
You can fix, or you can do another one, and
Well,
And
that's
that's the
get
best
better
thing
at it.
about doing things on the internet. You can
Yeah.
fix everything whenever you want.
You
And
can-
it's really
Yeah.
quick.
it's hard to learn how to take criticism, so that's another thing. So when you start, you really got to ignore that kind of thing to begin with, or it's going to break your confidence. So there's a time when you can learn from it, but I think in the beginning you've got to sort of power through until you're ready and able to learn and understand that, because it takes a bit.
And I would say
that's another good argument too for getting stuff posted. I mean, like I would say, you guys have touched on this, I think, and I think people understand that if you're doing not a gag type comic, if you're doing a longer form story, like getting the bones in order, like thinking of structure is a good idea, so you don't get 50 pages in and then hit the wall and you don't know where you're going.
yeah.
But it is a good argument for getting it, like, other than that, for getting in there and not waiting too long, because the sooner you post, the sooner you get feedback, and that improves the way you handle criticism, even if you get nasty comments, which I think are pretty rare on the Duck specifically, but in
that's
general.
what I was going to say. Like, host it on the Duck. You're gonna
Yes. Very friendly
Not
people.
that we're biased.
And what comes
Actually,
with that, I mean, I'm not going to say too much about this, because we've had casts on criticism and stuff before, but it also means that when you post, it's so easy to it's something personal to you. This work, no matter what, it's yours and it's personal, but there's a degree to which you have to be able to distance yourself. It doesn't mean don't love it. Your passion for what you're creating is what spurs you to put it out into the world. You love this idea that you have so much that you want to put time and energy into it and serve it out and have other people read it, that just also just as passionate as we get about it, also just have a certain inkling of distance in there, to where when this shit happens, it doesn't crush you.
And
And
like,
also,
as
I
a,
would
sorry,
say, learn to be little quick. Learn to discriminate between criticism that is constructive and is going to help you improve and grow, and trolls, because you're gonna get both kinds, especially people that, I mean, there is a category of person that not only in art, anywhere, that usually they're not very creative themselves for different reasons. And, yes, and they will want to just attack you. Doesn't matter how good or bad your art is. Doesn't matter how much you have invested. None of this matters. They just want to attack, and you have to be able to discern and understand who is that kind of person and who is the one that's giving you constructive criticism. Usually, the second type that gives you constructive criticism is not going to be toxic. They're gonna want to help you. So that is going to be
speed.
Yeah.
Like they're actively saying, like, I love what you're doing, but this could make it better. And it's coming from a position of love.
Yeah, they care enough about it to actually give you that advice, which we talked about last week, actually.
And that's actually a good position to come from when giving criticism is, are you doing this? Are you criticizing from a place of positivity? Are you criticizing or are you providing constructive feedback from a point that you actually love the work itself and can see it improve?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
All right. Oh, I think that's a good sort of moment to sort of wrap it up then. I think.
Oh wow!
Already? It's been an hour already. It flew by, man.
I think almost.
It really did.
Although we did have that long period of fire alarm.
I think we've done pretty good.
Yeah. I would say bottom line is start. Don't think about it too much. Just take the plunge. And if you feel self-conscious, take the plunge in the duck's pond, because you're probably going to get what you need to get your swimming. Yeah. So
it's a shallow pond.
Exactly.
It's a shallow grave.
You'll be safe. There's no sharks in our pond, so yeah.
Just ducks. Right. Lots and lots of ducks.
Just jump in there.
They will imprint on you. So there's that.
Yeah, it's win-win. All right. And yeah, if you're lucky, you'll turn into a swan.
Let's go play D&D.
All right. Bye, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.